this the second time, we appreciate it. And Larry, we always enjoy yours. I guess we don't really probably need to do introductions. I think everybody knows everybody, so. We're gonna kind of review where we are in Lakeview. I think Larry may have some statistics about this last winter's program, and I haven't really looked at them closely yet, so I'll let, maybe we'll talk about that and then go on into, here she comes.
All right.
Sandwiches are ready, Amy.
The boss is
You went and got them.
Yeah. So, I'll just, I don't know that I got enough copies to me, but, I'll just hand these out anyway.
Do I need to make some more copies for you?
Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
I've got a 2014
Oh, this is.
year and a 2015 first quarter. That's 2015 first quarter. And here, Amy, you can go ahead and run a few copies. I just have one more. Give this to.
I'll go get some copies.
So the first one is 2014, and that's a full year's worth of data. And so to give you an idea of how well things are going, I think that the January and February were, it was fairly dry and fairly warm of 2014. And the same with the fall of 2014, October and December. November and December. So if you look at the lines that are above the red line, that go above the red line, you see there's a number of, January and February had a number of exceedances. And there's only one that looks like it was an exceedance in November. And so, you know, the rest of, oh, that's fine. Hi.
Janine?
Janine's here, yay.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. I'm glad you're here. You know Justin?
I don't think so, Justin. Janine Cannon. Nice to meet
Janine
you.
Cannon, she's the chair of the committee, longtime chair of the committee. So,
She's our planner for the town,
yeah,
part-time.
Okay.
And a Forest Service BLM employee. Well, BLM employee, BLM only.
Thank you. I'm really sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
I was late too.
Huh?
I was late too.
That's all right. I think this is gonna be a fairly short meeting unless we get lots of questions. So, you know, I think that, you know, when the ordinance happened, it was right in the middle of the summer. And so Amy kicked the thing off really well this last year. And if you look at 2015, you had one day above the standard too. But generally, that's January and February. But generally speaking, you know, I think that the ordinance has been working. Just looking at this data. Because I don't really see much of a difference between January and February of 2014 and the rest of the winter in 2014 and 15. So, you know, I think you guys are doing what was intended with the plan. So I've been really pleased, and I think we've gotten the word out to the community. So, you know, I guess that's about all I really have in terms of, you know, data. And there was some wildfire smoke in the summer.
Is that the spike? And
Yeah, and you didn't get the color copy.
I didn't,
No.
I noticed that right away. Wow.
That's what you get for
Oh,
being
sure.
late.
I think that, I don't believe that you're right. I mean, as you can see in January this year is of 15 as well as January, February of a year ago, you know, we obviously, that's the worst part of the year.
Mhm.
You know, both years it was. It's just that I think because of the work that we're trying to do, the spikes were less. You know, we were able to stay under the threshold for the most part.
Yeah.
As compared to the year before, you know, my just memory of the winters, a lot the same, a lot of cold and dry, and, you know, down around 0 or below. And, you know, I think this year, you know, we've sent out a number of letters. We had a little bit of controversy. You know, Facebook is dealing with social media nowadays I still don't have a strategy for how to do it, but there was quite a bit of things from, we ought to throw a rock through that person's car window that's driving around watching for smoke, you know, to a neighbor across the alley here who, in a commercial building, was probably some of the moving force behind the people that were concerned about our increased effort with the air quality. She has sold the building, and she had a wood furnace in the basement of her building, a commercial building. And it was right next to my window upstairs, the chimney. And anyway, it really was quite a headache, but that is being eliminated now. The new owners are putting in a new heating system, so that problem is going away this year, which is nice.
Yeah.
But we had, I think, talking with people, sending out letters with our water bills, you know, outreach such as that. Again, maybe the reader board with information on it, plus getting, you know, Amy has gotten the advisory, the daily advisory out in several different formats now to where most anybody should be able to access the information. I believe part of it also is people are understanding that the biggest initial impact, if we're not able to be successful, is going to be upon businesses who are the employers in our community, and that a number of the people whom we dealt with in social media early on are in some way connected with those employers, and I believe they had some communication with their employees about the importance of the air quality program and how their jobs might be affected by it. And you know, I think all of that made some difference. 100%, no. We'll need to remind them all again this year as the program kicks off again, but I think we made some progress.
This being my first actual return for the next season, I don't know how many people actually come in and question before season, but I know every week we've had 4 or 5 people in or more questioning when it starts, you know, when the advisory starts, if they can burn, you know, when we had those first few cold days, people are actually calling and seeing if we're doing the advisory yet. And so, you know, I don't know if they've done that in the past, but I really think that we got the word out last winter, and so people are actually paying attention.
Yeah, it is fantastic. And Ray said something about throwing a rock through the person doing the surveys. Did you feel threatened, I guess, at all last year?
No. I mean, frustrated more than anything.
Frustrated in what way?
Because people just lash out and don't even stop and think, you know, just frustrated that we have the exemptions and everything, and people just won't take the time to even stop and think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just
The person who made that threat is, you know, I don't know, again, I think it was, like you said, it was lashing out, it really wasn't a serious threat, but that person is an employee of one of the 2 permitted emitters in the Lakeview area, and I know they had a conversation with that person.
Oh, good.
You know, that's the thing about social media, you don't know who sees it. Who's monitoring.
That's right. So like I said, I don't know how to deal with social media well, because it's like an instant reaction, and, you know, unlike a newspaper or even the radio, you know, you don't have a chance really to kind of state both sides of the story at the same time. I mean, they can organize, you know, revolts in Egypt by Facebook or whatever, it's, you know, so we shouldn't be surprised. I think you know, maybe Mother Nature had something to do with it too, but it's, I think people are understanding. We were having some early discussions before we started the meeting about generational changes, people's attitudes are changing somewhat, and all of that it doesn't all happen overnight. It's just, it does take years of time, and we've been working at this since 1993, 95, 90, somewhere back in the PM 10 days.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Seen
and
a
I
lot
think
of
the
changes
program's
over the years.
pardon?
Seen a lot of changes over the years.
Yeah.
So Amy, and Ray, do you feel like, with, you know, with the new efforts last year, that we had a lot more community contact with one-on-one, like the letters you sent out
Yeah.
from your surveys?
Yes, because there was sometimes lines of people out of my office waiting to come in and speak with us about options and what to do and what this meant, and so I think so. Again, you know, I don't know, because last year being my first year, you know, I don't know previously how everything was, but, I mean, it was a busy time. Yeah.
How have things been going with the change outs?
Okay, I was just going
Yeah,
to
sorry.
a little bit about that. And I checked with the staff yesterday. It's SCOED. SCOED is managing the change out project this time around. We have 11 projects either completed or underway, and a 12th one that is kind of in the works, beginning of the process. So it's, you know, in Lakeview, you know, that's a significant amount. And most of those change outs are 100% change outs. That we're going from wood to electricity or heat pumps, you know, propane, something other than wood entirely. So they're going to be all the time, you know, changed out. I don't know if we're going to be able to meet you know, our goal of the $750,000 in Lakeview unless we maybe change up the rules a little bit next year. But, you know, we're doing all we can to try to get as many people to go, you know, change out to heat pumps or something else entirely. You know,
The change outs are 100% covered though, right?
No.
no, they're not.
Okay.
There's
Supposed to
as,
be that.
did you guys go over this yesterday with Betty?
A little bit, yeah, but go ahead and explain it again.
I didn't bring my notes down, don't think about, it's $4,500 cap, if I'm
Yeah,
recalling, and
so-
there's a 10% match requirement by the property owner along with that, so that brings the project somewhere around $5,000 project, maybe a little over.
Yeah, I think that it evolved over time because they wanted to use the tax credits and those kinds of things through the Department of Energy, and the only way they could figure out how to do that was to subtract the tax credit from the total bill. And, you know, basically force the homeowner to go that way if they wanted to get reimbursed for the last little bit. So it's, you know, it's different than what we've done in the past, which is good in some ways, not so good in others.
I find it kind of hard for the people that I seen coming into my office inquiring about the program, because a lot of them were economic need, so I'm not sure that they're gonna be able to come up with that extra amount. And I know that the program changed into, right now, just, you know, I know there's phases, but, where it was complete change out as of now, and 99.9% of the people that came in my office were happy to learn about other sources to add, but their final words were, but I don't want my woods to have gone completely. And so I think that eliminated a lot of people when they made that change. Yeah.
Just go back on the heat pumps for a minute, and something Rob said before Mike and Janine came in was that he said that he put a heat pump, two heat pumps in his house. It cost him about $8,000 to do that. And it's over 2,000 square foot house. And he says those heat pumps have brought down his heat bill to $100 a month. So that impressed me.
He said it's under a 2-year payback.
Yeah, under a 2-year payback for the whole thing.
That's Mike Patrick.
No, Mike.
Rob Thornton.
Rob Thornton.
Oh, Rob Thornton.
But yeah, Mike has had similar type of experience what he did with his heat pump.
I think, Justin, well, you know, we need to make a couple of amendments to our ordinance. We've been holding off, you know, to encourage people to, you know, there were those sole source people last year to get into the program as much as we can, but we're about to the point of needing to start the air quality season again, our call of the days. You know, the sole source, at least I'm gonna propose to the council that we amend our ordinance to allow another winter of people being able to apply for sole source exemption, since we're almost up to it, because even if everybody that are sole source were to come in today and want to, and be willing to change out, we couldn't practically get it done this year because we don't have that many contractors and stuff available to do that much work. So we're going to do, or I'm gonna propose at least that the council do that again. And then the other thing I think we're gonna look at doing is allowing pellet stoves as a heating source. They're so much cleaner than what we've been used to that, you know, if people want some kind of a wood option, it seems like. The other thing that, you know, Amy is talking about and where, I guess where I'd like to see the program possibly modified for next year when we get there, is to allow people to keep their wood stove, because there's no reason why they can't use their wood stove on a green day. And as you can see, you know, most of our days are green days. And so from that point of view, there's really no reason why we can't be burning wood on those days. But they do need, and they would need to agree to not burn wood on the yellow and red days if we were to install an alternative heat source to use on those. In our case last winter, I think we had 20 days that we called yellow or red. And so there's 20 days of last winter that these people would have needed to have agreed to use the propane or the electric or monitor fuel instead. So I guess I would like to see the program, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do this or not, with the state for this $750,000, allow people to keep their wood stoves that want to keep them, but give them an alternative source to use on those red and yellow days.
Yeah, I think that people are gonna agree if we give them another source, not burn on those days, because they're already coming forward and wanting help. If they weren't gonna agree to do that, then they wouldn't even come forward, you know, is my opinion. I would think that would be a good
And from my
route.
perspective, I think that makes some sense in Lakeview, because if you had natural gas, there would be totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly, yeah.
But you don't, and so it's a real challenge for people in Lakeview. You know, I do know that flies in the face of some other folks that are involved in the program,
We're
Well,
working.
and it's all based on human behavior.
so, yes.
I'm just thinking, okay, so the original owner of the house who agrees to this sells the house, and then there's a re-education of the next person.
Yeah.
But it's a start at least.
Well, the nice thing is, you know, I have talking points, actually.
Okay.
Some of them, right?
Oh, all right.
And one of the things was what we said last year, and I'll say it again, is the ordinances that you passed are great. It's fantastic that you were able to do that. And I think personally, from what I've seen in other areas, it's going to put you in a lot better position than if you hadn't done it otherwise, in terms affecting you guys during the winter. What you decide to do with it is kind of up to you and how you think best will work in this community. And the most important thing, I think, is making sure that this little, the value doesn't hit that line. If it doesn't hit that line, there's not a problem.
Obviously, however, yeah.
Yeah, and so in that sense, I think the most important thing is if you have $750,000 to use, hopefully you can find a way to use it. But for those red days, just I think it's really important that people don't burn if they have the means to do so. And if it's difficult to find a way to burn cleaner or find an alternative source. And there's a lot of good resources out there about simply drying wood and making sure that your stove or whatever other source you have out there is working optimally. And I think you're in a very good position to be able to send that message and help people out with that. At the end of the day, again, I think the most important thing is just not hitting that 35 on those bad days, and you guys are doing a good job with that so far. 2013, everyone knows, was a bad year. 14 and 15 were a little bit warmer, so this year is going to be probably an interesting challenge, but I think it's doable. I have confidence in you for whatever that's worth coming from me. But from what I've seen over the past few years, you're taking this issue very seriously, going about it in a very practical way, and I think you can be successful. So
I hope El Nino starts soon and lasts till somewhere in March.
Every year.
Yeah, every year, yeah. But I'll make you a bet that we'll still have some cold weather in February and January. We always do. You have, I don't know if you have other talking points. I'll just let Justin, there's left a place for you to share
have
your
some other
comments. and thoughts.
questions, just
Sure, I'd like to answer your questions.
is how are things going otherwise with the PM Advance program? I know people are interested in hearing that. I'm not sure if this counts as the annual check-in meeting or if you're going to do something differently.
Well, it
but
was intended to be, I guess.
Yeah, we might have to do something different.
Are there things that you want, it sounds like there's some things that you want to talk about changing, and that probably will involve DEQ based on.
Yeah, we, like I said, we have a couple of small changes to make in our ordinance, at least to get us through this winter. And hopefully apply some more of that money for the change out next year, so that we won't be needing to extend sole source exemptions any longer, possibly. So, but I think the program is working. I believe that with all of the reporting that took place around it, that helped with public opinion, public awareness as much as anything probably, is just because we spent quite a lot of time and meetings talking about it. And so we did that last year. Hopefully we can renew that interest this year and keep it going. But was it 2017 that we were actually going to have an actual, I mean, we're having meetings every year, but we're actually going to check on 2017, as I recall, and make sure that whether we were on track towards meeting our goals in the PM Advance program or not. And this shows a good indication that we're headed in the right direction. We get another winter's worth of data, and hopefully it'll be as good. We'll have some good things to look at in 2017 that we'll be able to say, we don't need to implement some more extreme measures that we talked about in the plan to meet those, to meet the standards. So I feel like we're headed in the right direction. The indicators are in the right direction. Anyway.
Well, I want to reemphasize what he said earlier and others have said about, this has really been a community effort. The media has been great. The people have responded in the community, some more positively than others. but still they've
even
responded.
bad, you're getting the attention and.
It's been a real, the Lions Club, the Rotary Clubs, the leaders of this community have been very supportive of this program. And, you know, we held those meetings, the community meetings last year. I think that was a huge educational piece that I think let people vent or whatever they needed to do, and then they could hear what was really trying to be happening. We have a complaint that came up about some other sources in town here that I'm gonna be visiting this afternoon and tomorrow. But, you know, that's another piece of the educational puzzle that I think needs to happen. So, you know, responding to those complaints. And
These are
you know,
recent complaints,
Yeah.
Larry?
yeah, concerned that certain sources are getting away with things where they are controlled in other stores. So, you know, those are the kinds of issues that, you know, I think are gonna happen, and just take them one by one. But in general, I think that the community understands, and I think that the community needs to be really proud of their efforts.
I was gonna say, this seems to be a really good time with this data to show them what the first year has accomplished and give them credit for being part of the solution. Absolutely.
So, I guess thinking of the, you know, we have, what, 2 permitted industrial sources in Lakeview? 3?
No, two, yeah, right.
Cornerstone and Fremont, or Collins.
Mhm.
And then the others are industrial or commercial around, or they're under the
They're under the threshold.
annual threshold, so they don't. So I guess my question, just the permitted sources, I guess, are the ones that you guys have some leverage on. Of course, I guess, do unpermitted sources grow? When does somebody determine that an unpermitted source has grown to the point that they need to be looking at?
Well, you know, if a particular industrial source is growing, they need to submit notification to us that they are growing in their certain capacity. If they go over certain thresholds, then that's when they're required to get a permit, and we'll be working with them to get their permits. You know, as we do have the capability for those small sources, if they're causing a problem, to put them under a permit anyway. And that means, you know, payment to DEQ for not only a permit fee, but also an annual compliance fee. And so, you know, it's something that, you know, it costs them some money, they don't want to do that.
Sure.
So
Oh, yeah.
the idea is for them to keep it clean, so to speak.
So if you have a rock pit or you know, whatever the sources may be that are excluded or under the threshold, is there some kind of notification? How do they know that they ever even need to be thinking about a permit unless somebody shows up and knocks on their door?
Well, that's
Or is that about
sometimes how they find out.
They don't get an annual letter from,
No, it's just required in the rule, and.
if they didn't read the rule, they don't know.
They don't know, but they can find out very quickly if somebody complains.
So, I mean, I guess the main thing I would hope is, and I assume they do this, is on an annual basis, that they perform maintenance, you know, review their equipment. I'm not thinking about those permitted ones out Fremont and Cornerstone. They undoubtedly have a maintenance routine that they go through to make sure that their equipment's working correctly.
They're supposed to, annually they typically shut down and clean things out, get things working again, and then they go back online. But the smaller guys, you know, if they're good operators, they're gonna do that too. And, you know, if they see dust or get complaints about dust or, you know, smoke coming out of their place, then they should recognize that that's an issue and they should take care of it.
Now, if Red Rock comes in, they'll be a permitted source, right?
Yes, they'll be a permitted source. So, yeah, and Iberdrola was permitted too, they had to let their permit expire. So, anyway, that, you know, I think this community, back on the positive, I think that this community has done a remarkable job.
Thank you.
to add on to that, usually, I work with a number of different areas in the Pacific Northwest, and I've been using you guys as an example.
A good example.
A good example, yeah, no, very much so, 'cause I mean, I think I'm mentioning that just so people whoever will watch us knows that you're not the only ones dealing with this situation, and you've proactively, kind of gone through some of the growing pains to, address the problem, have come up with these great ordinances and are starting to implement, and come 2017, maybe even sooner, we'll be able to consistently show that you're meeting the standard, and that's a good story, I think.
I think that, as I recall, I don't know if this is still the case, but our ordinances that propose to, even though we're going to, maybe put off the implementation even another year, but doing away with the sole source exemptions is unique, or at least it was at the time. I don't know if it still is. That we're not going to allow that, and at some point in the future, that's got to stop.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not here to tell you how to run your program, and I think you know best on the ground how to deal with the situation here. And if you see someone who's consistently violating the ordinance or something like that, then maybe that's something that needs to be addressed. If you have a good feel, like when we were in Klamath, they're saying that they're making some good progress with people who violated in the past, and they are feeling confident about that, then maybe there's, go down that road. I don't live here, I don't know how to.
Well, I think it makes a difference to people who are having to make a decision whether to replace their wood stove or not. That if they see that looming over them, that there's only, that using a wood stove only is going to be phasing out, it may make a difference in their decision as to how they're gonna heat their house going forward. So, and I hope that's what is happening, is people, when you have to make that change, you think about the impact of continuing to do what you've always done compared to what are we going to be looking at as we go ahead. That may help people to decide to put in a heat pump or a monitor or something else. So.
Even on that note, people call, I don't even know how many people in the last few weeks that have called, and they do have other sources, but they're updating their stoves, and so they've called and they're making sure that we don't have any regulations and that the new stove is gonna meet those standards if we had those regulations. So people are even paying attention if they're updating their stoves to make sure that they're meeting Lakeview's requirements. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
So Amy, do you know how many sole source exceptions we had last year?
Oh, that was last year, Janine, I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head, I don't know.
This is an annual thing, so you're going to, they will have to come back.
Yes, I
They
have
will,
told-
according to our ordinance, the sole source was only for last
For
winter.
last winter, okay.
And so.
We only gave them a year.
Yeah.
Yes, all of them, even, all of them will have to come back, the economic need, and, we have the certified stove exemption too, to grant them to burn on the yellow day, if it's a certified stove. They all have to come back, so the next couple weeks, what I was gonna do was go through the list of people that had exemptions last year and send them a letter to remind them to come in and redo their paperwork.
I don't think we've had the number in your report as to how many sole source
Yeah, I
exemptions
can't
there were.
remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember.
Honestly, I didn't look at it since last year. I haven't addressed it yet.
Hopefully this winter will be less.
So so do you see a pattern? Do we still have the chronic in your surveys? The chronic
Abusers?
abusers? I didn't want to use abusers.
Yes and no. No, I guess not. Because I think we did a lot of education last year, and people coming in and getting the exemptions was a big thing. When I attended the DEQ meeting in Bend, when was that?
In July.
In July, yeah. Oh. There was some other towns there, speaking of, that they didn't take the rough end on it. They, like warning people and everything, they went in softly. And, you know, we took the rougher with our warning letters, and we didn't mean it to be rough, but it got people's attention. And so I think that that was a good way to start it out, going in strongly so that it actually caught people's attention and
Oh.
got them in here and educated on it, and I think that that worked.
Okay, good.
Because people would come in like, I'm gonna get a fine, what is this? It's like, no, it's just to get you in here, and here you are, so let's discuss your options and what we can do for you.
Good.
Mamie's personality and way with people made the day.
Some people.
Amy, in your report, you say that you sent out 182 warning letters.
Mhm.
Were most of those in November and December?
Yes. Well, December, January, I
December,
think, do
January.
believe, yes, if I, because I just looked at that yesterday, and I think, yeah, I think it was probably December, January was the most days that,
So there are even some later on in the season.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there any way to break down the in-town and? the
I have it all
urban
broke
growth?
down.
Do you?
Yep.
That'd be interesting to see.
I did, anytime a letter got sent out, I tallied where, yeah. you know, it's-
Well, I would just make mention that as a town councilor and as a local business person going around and talking to the many merchants, and many times when the merchants aren't in, that I needed to visit with, I got a earful from those who lived in our surrounding community. And the one thing that was pointed out to me was, and I really don't know how to answer them other than laying it back on the EPA or the DEQ in regards to safe monitoring for a new project, the Red Rock biofuel plant. I know that their type of combustion is totally different than what you're talking of in the wood combustion of wood stoves. But it's hard to get that across to people, because when they see something that massive that is gonna be on the south end where the currents are gonna come, you know, the same way that we had the urban growth boundaries, sending the same wood smoke this way, and now that they're inclusive, those people are really the ones that were outspoken, the ones that do live in that urban growth area, that, you know, you've just now infringed on them to a degree. The town of Lakeview's residents have had to live by obligations over the past few years. But the ones that have lashed out against the town of Lakeview as the monitor, lead role, you know, enforcement, whatever, agency, I think they want to know why the town of Lakeview is even negotiating for someone such as Red Rock Biofuel, and why the EPA and the DEQ is allowing that to happen. You know, I don't know what the perfect answer is. I just say, well, if you have concerns, since you're in the county, please talk to your county commissioners. They're the ones that are in charge of your jurisdiction. They entered into the PM advanced plan with the town of Lakeview and surrounding areas, so please talk with them. The town of Lakeview's hands are tied in regards to permitting or the emissions from a facility such as that. But that question's there. You know, why are you gonna take away something that we've had here as a heritage, you know, type of lifestyle, that, you know, you're gonna bring in something new and fandangled, and we have to sacrifice for that so that they can, you know, I don't know, it's just, it's a mixed reaction and mixed bag, and I know that you guys monitor on a separate basis in regards to that, but to explain that to the common person who feels that you've taken something away from them is a little difficult.
Yeah, so when you talk to these people, are they concerned about the ordinances that have been passed and how they're being implemented?
Yeah,
Or
that
are
you're even infringing on telling them how to run their life, you know, and we knew that was coming, and it's been something that's been outspoken for years here in Lakeview, but more so now on the outskirts, where they're now starting to build the enforcement. And you know, you speak of a lifting of, you know, the sole source. We decided on the sole source situation. I'm not so sure the county really was all that in agreement with it, but I don't know that we should change it. I think that we should stick by, you know, the statutes that we established with the plan, because if you vary it right now, how are you going to gauge that it would have worked in the first place? Those are my outspoken thoughts. I didn't know of changes that were coming about. I didn't know that there would be changes allowed in the plan to that degree. I've not kept up on it since it started. I listened to Justin's and aired it again this morning, the interview that you and Larry and Kelly were all with on the radio last year. And you know, it sounds like a plan that's been well instigated, and I think that if we start backing off of restrictions and what people thought was going to be implied, then we might perhaps fail in the future. But I guess to everyone their own, and we'll continue to hear.
Well, I guess it sounds like, when you were telling us, Mike, it sounds like it's kind of a parity issue.
It is, because you know, like I say, I can't gauge. I had to go on what Red Rock Biofuels, Jeff Metternach told me. My questioning in my dealings with them in different regards has been just that. What are we looking at as far as emissions that might harm us, like wood stove emissions harm us, and we're taught by the different agencies that we need to look out for our better health. So when they compare that and wonder why they have to step aside burning their wood stove so that somebody can come in and make money, a private enterprise.
I think that issue is gonna come up over and over again.
Well, I'm sure it does, and in many communities, I'm sure.
I've had a number of those same discussions, and I think it was at the Rotary meeting, but it may have been the Seroptimus meeting last winter when we were talking about Red Rock, and that question came up, and you know, there's an awful lot of misunderstanding that, you know, that a lot of people believe that they're burning wood. But when you explain to them, you know, they're really not. The wood is all enclosed inside of a vessel. They're burning a lot of natural gas, which has its own issues, but it's not a particulate matter issue for us, that the wood is not being combusted and released into the atmosphere. Then when they kind of understand that, then they settle down a bit. But there's still a lot of people, or a number of people, I don't know if there's a lot, that still don't know that, or don't understand how you can possibly turn wood into oil and not burn it somehow or other in the process of doing it. So.
Right.
And
you know, and to answer your question directly in terms of DEQ's permitting authority and what we do, we're gonna treat Red Rock as strictly, and actually I think that they've been, we have taken their process and liberally applied our rules to them so that, you know, they are, and they're complying with what we were asking them to do. So there is, or at least that's what they tell us they're going to do. They haven't built the plant yet. But when they build it, they're going to comply with whatever we require or ask. And we feel confident that their emissions are going to meet the standards just like all the other industry, actually more strict because they're new. And there's a unique situation here in Lakeview where you're bouncing up against the standard. And we want to make sure that at least PM 2.5 emissions are as low as possible. And it seems like they are. They're meeting our rules.
So I'm right in telling those constituents or people that I run into that are outside of even our boundaries where I serve, that you know, the EPA and the Department of Environmental Quality are watching out for us in regards to those emissions. They're just on a different standard than what we're dealing with on the PM advanced plan.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with that.
That's right.
I'd also add on too, when we're looking at a lot of these communities in the Pacific Northwest, especially ones that are driven by residential wood combustion, but also have a few industrial sources, we've come up with that issue. You see a big factory, why me? And a lot of times we've looked at that a lot. And Larry, you could probably talk to more around the modeling side of things, but in terms of quantity of emissions, those sources do have a lot. But when we see what people are actually breathing, 80% of it is coming from the residential wood stoves, from that smoke. And so a lot of the strategies that communities have chosen is, well, you're going to focus on the big slice of the pie, and 80% is that's more of the pie than not. And so that's what a lot of these strategies have gone after.
And that's exactly right. So, and that's the way it is in Lakeview too. We've done some modeling. we've taken, well, the existing industry, and actually Iberdrola too, because that was permitted at the time. And we modeled all their emissions and then the proposed emissions, and it was about it was a significant difference. For every ton of emissions that the industry put out, wood stove emissions put out. The effectiveness of those emissions on the monitor were like 10, 20 times more than the industrial sources. So yeah, wood stoves are huge in terms of the actual impact to human breathing.
So the response to Red Rock is just similar to what we always heard about Collins and the mining. Cornerstone, thank you. It's always, it's me, but what are you doing about them?
Right.
It's the same perception or the same attitude.
Well, and you went through permit hearings and what have you for Red Rock already. I know you had some things that took place here in Lakeview. So I think it's all on track, but it's just hard, I think, for people to fathom what really is gonna be happening with that kind of natural gas and wood being combined. And, you know, that's even bigger than my fireplace. So that's all I'm saying is that once it's probably all in line, it'll come into check and everybody will understand much better.
But also, this was the first year for there to be, for them to be in the program, where town residents have been dealing with for a while.
Oh, that's what I say.
And have started to
Are
become
having to.
accustomed, so they're just now adjusting.
It takes a little while,
Yeah.
it certainly does.
Regarding other things that are in the area, you know, we continue, well, this will be the second year that geothermal has been providing heat to the schools, second winter, to the schools and the hospital. I've got to think that even though fuel oil they burn is not as, it doesn't emit the particulate that the fuel oil that they were burning is not like the wood equivalent would be. It's still being off of out of the system, is out of our system here in the community. It's got to make a difference. And the other thing that just a few days ago kind of realized, I was over at the courthouse, having worked there for a number of years prior. You know, there's a big old boiler furnace in the basement of the courthouse, and I know it used to belch a bit when it would come on, and you know, they've replaced, I don't know that they've gotten rid of the furnace. I assume they're keeping it as a backup. I'm not sure that they've installed a whole new heat pump system in the courthouse for air conditioning and heating, which is good for us, Mike, because now they're gonna be buying electricity and we'll get a franchise fee out of that. But that's why I told the hospital when they went down and plugged in the new MRI machine, I said, God, yeah, get another one of those. I think they use a lot of power. But having the courthouse come off of the, for the most part, out of being an emitter is probably a good thing too.
That's great.
It's not like taking out a wood boiler. It should make a difference. So, you know, we continue to look at other ways to expand, you know, the geothermal, when the opportunities come. The school and the hospital are both looking at expanding their uses. The school bringing their wood shop and ag shop facilities on. At the hospital health district, they're looking at putting the clinics, the doctor's clinics, which are an integral part of the hospital really, but they have been on, well, they're heat pumps, so I guess that's not gonna make any difference in our emissions, but they are expanding the geothermal uses. And my point, I guess, with that is, I think that as where the right opportunities exist, we're able to demonstrate that that's a good source of heat. To the, you know, someday we're going to maximize, you know, how much we have available to whomever in the community to use, but we are demonstrating that those are good alternatives.
Has there been any interest, at one time you talked about having some of the, I want to call it wastewater, but that's not.
Return water.
Return water, thank you. Being used for maybe heating people's homes?
Yeah, we have not, no one's approached us about it yet. We haven't went out and approached them. Until just recently, we haven't found appliances that look, that are aesthetically pleasing to put in your home somewhere. Other than the old radiator that we all remember from years ago, the steel one, and unless you're going retro, I don't think that's probably what you want in your house. But there are now, I just found it maybe a month ago. They're made back east, but a geothermal heater. They're about the size of a monitor, as far as that they go on a wall, and they are only like that thick.
Oh, okay.
That would go on a wall, be able to retrofit a home, and then the plumbing can be there. I'm sure people would prefer it to come up through the wall, but you can. That's for space heaters. They have a little fan in them that is, at least advertised to be very quiet. I would like to find a place that's near our geothermal lines that would volunteer to maybe share the cost of installing something, so we could have a place
Demonstration.
that we could demonstrate how it works. So that is something I'd like to see, like to do.
That'd be cool.
We haven't got there yet. Actually, though, along that line, we're building a new Head Start facility here in Lakeview, down in the south part of town, and it's going to be heated with geothermal water from the return line. It's about a 7,000 square foot building. We have a community development block grant that's paying for that. So it is going to be heated floor, a concrete floor with heat in the floor. Little kids like to get down and play on those things. But I have suggested, they're looking at how they might incorporate one or two of these heaters that I'm talking about, wall mount heaters in there someplace, so that like on the when it's a little bit cool, but it's not so cold that like this time of year, you need a little heat early in the morning just to take the chill off. But that maybe they might be able to use those. It'd be nice as we're building that if we could put a couple of those in, and just to show how they work. And people can see what they look like. I think that more than anything, that's probably going to be a factor. Is what do you want me to put in my house? Where am I going to hide that thing?
Demonstration project. Demonstrate it works, and attract people. Cool. What about natural gas? What's the prognosis on that? We know where we're at on that?
Well, we're, it's tied to the Red Rock facility pretty directly, and that Red Rock is going to bring natural gas about a mile south of town if they go ahead and build, because their facility depends on natural gas. From there, we're working with them to oversize the line, the gas line, bringing that into town. And from that oversized line, we're attempting, Mike and I and Brad are going to meet a little later this afternoon to review a draft contract that does still need some work. That would be an agreement between Red Rock, Lakeview, and Lake County to share the excess capacity of this gas line that they're bringing in, and it's in exchange for some tax payments, and it's a complicated process, but our goal is that we will have the natural gas capacity at that location, then to be able to provide a utility service throughout the rest of the urban area of the town of Lakeview for somebody in the future to develop a utility. The PUC in Oregon has some requirements regarding how fast a utility has to be able to recover its investment, like 3 years to recover their investment. And it's just almost impossible to do that in a small community like Lakeview. But PUC is holding hearings later this winter to possibly modify those rules to allow for longer paybacks, so utilities might be able to come into Lakeview. Beyond that, there's some money set aside to begin by the same fund that is providing the $1.5 million of change-out funds for Lake and Klamath County is also providing, I believe it's $850,000 to help support bringing natural gas into Lakeview beyond Red Rock. That money will be available in the spring or summer of 2017, so it's a couple of years out yet. But if you put somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million with other things that are available or might be available, we're optimistic at least that we're going to get gas throughout Lakeview. And again, if we do, it's like you were talking about Klamath Falls and the wood stove change out, it gives us another option that's very attractive to wood stoves, because it's, at least at this point in time, it's inexpensive. Gas is pretty darn cheap, natural gas that is. And so that would be a good thing for the air quality program, then, to be able to encourage people to move over to the natural gas. Although, probably the first thing that has to be done, quite honestly, I'm advocating for at least, is there's going to have to be loans and grants and various things that will come together in order to make this utility service actually happen. And the first thing any lender or grant offerer is going to want is a feasibility study that shows how it's going to work and how long it's going to take. And we haven't done that yet. We've got a back of the napkin kind of sketch that Avista did for us, and it's not that I'm arguing with their numbers at all, that they seem to be pretty accurate, but I'm sure that USDA or whomever else the source may be that would fund the loan that would go along with it is going to want a little more detail than that. And I guess we all should. If the town or the county or both are going to be maybe borrowing money or some other way participating in a program, we should all want to have good information that we can rely on as to how much it's going to cost and how we're going to recover it. I think the important key is how fast can you reasonably expect people to switch over. What's the I can't think of the word I want to use right now, but how fast is that going to happen? Is it going to be 20% of the customers' potential base is changed over in the first 5 years, or how long does it take to get to the point that you've made a significant difference and enough money to pay the debt? And there's bound to be one, because I think we're looking at somewhere between $8 and $10 million to build out a system. So it sounds like a lot, but
Over time, we can be.
The geothermal system we just finished for the school and the hospital was, the gross cost was about $3.6 million for basically 2 customers, large customers, granted. We did get about $1 million worth of tax credits and a HUD grant that we had for a number of years that we were able to apply to that and bring it down to about $2.5 million as far as the financing went. But it's able to be done. The numbers work if you have enough time to make it, that you can work it over. So
It's impressive, Ray. It's impressive. You guys are working on this. This is great.
fun stuff.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. There's been a couple of headaches along the way.
Well,
We didn't even think it was a possibility, natural gas.
Right.
Yeah, no,
It
it's a
wasn't
real
even on the
possibility.
radar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a real possibility.
that's cool.
I think, my prediction would be that if Red Rock comes to town, that within 5 years, you'll see gas throughout town. If Red Rock doesn't come to town, there's no future for gas coming, because the cost of getting it from the Ruby pipeline to town is
For
enough to
utility,
kill
yeah.
a project, I think.
Well, Red Rock's already has a couple of customers for jet fuel.
But for their fuel that they're gonna produce, yes.
Southwest.
South, yeah, and one of them,
FedEx,
is it FedEx, yes? Jet fuel. And it'll clean up a lot of forest debris.
That's good.
Create 25 jobs at the plant and support another 50 to 75 jobs in the gathering, the process of gathering the biofuels. So that's all a good thing. 100 jobs or so in our community is huge. Very big.
Well.
Any other questions?
Well, no, I'm impressed. I was just gonna change the subject.
Okay.
I'm really pleased. Amy and I have been working on a program that we hope can get to work on our computer to help with the advisory call. And it's not that you guys haven't done a great job making your advisory calls in the way that you do it, but this will hopefully be an added tool. It looks at some predicted elevational temperatures, and so you can kind of give an idea of what the inversions look like, and also predicted wind speeds, so that it helps you make some educated guesses as to what the next stage is.
That doesn't work anymore.
I'm a true meteorologist.
All
the
Did you
tools, it
understand
sounds
that,
like,
maybe?
anyway.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how well it's gonna work, it needs to be tested.
Yeah, you're good, that's great,
But,
try something like that.
We're going to give it a try, and National Weather Service has been a partner on this project, and that they put together a program where they took a lot of data, a lot of meteorological data, in various elevations in the air, and they put together, drew a line through all that data, and so they can actually calculate what the PM 2.5 value will be. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a very good correlation. So you kind of have to take the number that you get with a grain of salt is the point. But it gives you a number, and you can say, okay, well, it looks like it's going to be a green day because it's predicted that it's 8 micrograms per cubic meter.
I would make mention too that the National Weather Service is, I think they've stepped up in the last year much more in regards to air quality and dissemination of information, because I know that's where I get our weather service from for dissemination to our local audiences from the National Weather Service, and to be reminded when there is an air quality advisory for the area is kind of important to come through that realm too, as a reminder for the public. So I think that's good that they pitched in like they have, because you can tell that they have in the last year.
Right.
Big difference.
And they were really great during these wildfire seasons
Yeah,
too.
I noticed that for sure.
They were on our conference calls,
Good.
talking about wildfires with
What might
us.
be coming up.
And they hear our state forester meteorologists talk and explain the weather patterns, and they didn't object to what he said, so he must have been golden.
They did it pretty good.
Yeah, so anyway, I've been impressed with all the cooperation that's happened at federal, state, and local levels, because we had the environmental health people on these calls too, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever think, Amy?
Yeah, they did have that kind of data. That's cool.
And Amy could be busy full-time doing that.
A real little control room in there.
When does advisory start?
The 15th of October.
Okay. So you'll have lots of time to practice and play with the new program.
Yeah, with the new program, yeah. The other day, Ray and I had to get on there for something, and I needed a refresher.
How quickly we
Get on here
forget.
again, and, yeah.
It comes back right away.
Like a riding a bicycle.
So we got two media representatives in the room. We're gonna meet with the Lake County Examiner. Did you want to do something with us while we're in town?
We certainly can, if you have an opportunity, we can do so. Are you gonna be here later this afternoon, or?
You taking up at 2?
Yeah, we can put off our other meeting a little bit. I'll give Brad a call and tell him if he wants to wait till
Well,
two. You can do an
brought the
interview
recorder,
with
we
him.
could,
Yeah.
if we could do it here before you guys leave or something, just do a short
Perfect.
interview.
Yeah.
Justin, I want to say again, thanks, and hopefully you'll come back next year. I know it's asking a lot for you to come every year, but if not, at least I certainly want to make sure that you know you're invited to come to our community anytime, and really look forward to having you here when we do our 2017 check-in.
Absolutely.
To see how the project really is working after we have a couple, 3 years worth of data and how it's going, so.
Thank you for the invitation, and keep at it, you're doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully being here in 2017 and seeing the numbers well below.
Yeah.
You're on your way, right?
All right.
Thank you to Larry
Yeah.
for all of your support
Larry's
over all
always
of this
wonderful.
time.
It's been my pleasure to work with you guys. You guys are great. You guys always have unique things going on, and really are doing a great job.
Gee,